Как-то в Татарстане по-другому. Сергей Олегович, призовем вас к порядку. Дорогие друзья,
Dear friends, let's call the meeting to order. Indeed, we have a challenging environment since we have to deal with what we have handy. We have been waiting for the minister. Hopefully, he's going to join us soon. Sergey is here. We're happy to welcome him at the table. Some time ago, Sergey suggested to organize the first Biennale of Young Architect, and the Tatarstan Republic that I represent here was invited to be a co-organizer of this event, and since Russian Federation has supported this initiative, I suggest we bring up this topic at the urban forum and discuss what's the future of young architects' work, what we can do to make it better, and what can be done in this regard. I would like to ask Chief Architect of Moscow, Sergey Kuznetsov, to be the first and keynote speaker of today's session. Hello, everybody. I would like to show you a presentation. Unfortunately, it's not quite the right one, but it's almost the one that I need, or I will skip some slides later on. The first slides do not relate to young architects, but still, just a couple of words as a preface. When I was appointed chief architect, that was like 5 years ago, my team and I has developed a very preliminary plan. There was a problem with the generation gap. This was a clear issue, so we decided to bring up a young architect generation. We were blamed for having preference for foreign architects, but unfortunately the very transparent statistics show that we had a number of quality architect bureau with a relatively elder generation and low competitiveness. And young architect bureau, although we're not the boys themselves, we had gone this way. We had a startup. We had zero human resources, 0 square meters of office, but we had very clear understanding of what our opportunities and our challenges are and how we can turn into an independent professional practice. And this knowledge helped us to build professional elevator, which is the opportunity for architects, generally architects, not just the young ones, to develop their practices. Here we have Yuli Borisov, who was among the first who was spotted and came into the limelight. And he's also not quite a young architect, pretty much as everybody present here. So let's just talk about the architects in general, architects who are proactive, who are willing to work in a serious market with big architecture, and I think we can have all the opportunities for that. That's the first slide showing the library and the archive on this exposition center. Mikhail, we didn't wait for you, but we've just started. I was sorry, I was talking to Sergey Sobyanin. No, it's not a reproach. We were waiting for you. let's skip some slides, and I want to focus on this one. We've launched a number of projects that became systematic, and I started with this one because it shows the background on how the architect market, the emerging architect market in the Soviet Union came about, and how we came up with the architect masterpiece. We started a series of educational events, and I think it's one of the most critical initiatives that we launched. We have the open city event when we talk to young professionals, to students, where we discuss, establish personal contacts with architects who are willing to work. We also collaborate with architectural councils. We publish literature. I'm not going to comment on the statistics since we're a bit tight on time. Everybody can read, and you can get it from the slide on your own. Indeed, the main thing was this focal points, lectures, and this exchange that was the cornerstone of our new policy. All those competitions are different. Now we're on the verge of the biggest competition ever held for the renovation project. It's going to be the summit of our competition history, and our first competition has already been finalized. We have Martha Thorne, who's the member of the jury board of that competition for Zaradia Park, and soon the Moscow will benefit from that project. Again, that was not the competition for young architects, but it played a major role in terms of showing how architects are picked and what are the opportunities for young professionals in here. We have published a lot of materials on that. Here you can see the cover for Bauwelt, and that's a sign of recognition of our work abroad. There was a major article in the Spiegel, and there was quite a lot of foreign media coverage from New York Times and other major players. So Moscow practice has been internationally recognized. That's another high-profile project. Again, the work of young architects, winners of competitions. Those are experienced professionals, but we still consider them young, since historically architects, the young architect in the Soviet practice was 50 years old on average. So I'm not talking about young professionals specifically. I'm talking about emerging architects, those who became high profile. Not all the competitions were finalized. Unfortunately, we're still falling behind with the Center of Contemporary Art. Those are the projects for new metro stations. The designs are really exciting. It's, again, a competition project aimed at the young architects, or I would say newcomers in the market. And many of those made a name on these projects. That's just the example of different metro stations. I'm not going to list them all. Those are smaller projects that have already been implemented. Everybody knows this pulsing red installation. It's an urban highlight. We talked to Felix Novelnikov, the architect of that building, but it was a long story, but finally he approved this improvement. So, to cut the story short, the careful work with the architects, old and new ones, will definitely end up in a quality project. We should not consider those things those are serious things. We should consider them seriously. That's another project. And this young team AP Studio became famous due to this major work that they received through competition. That's the example of how this social elevator works with us. That's our stand in architect competition for students. That's an open city presentation, and some success stories where we had interactive discussions with some architects where those people told their stories from student time all the way up to established architects. And fortunately, we could see that most of them participated in our social and professional elevators. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Mikhail for supporting us. The government did support us quite a lot. Without that, we would not succeed that much. Unfortunately, there are some mishaps in terms of legislation framework. It's been still missing for our competitions, so our work is still, in terms of competition, is still outside the legal framework. We should improve on that, and overall, we should develop along the same lines. We should continue and follow up on that. Yes, a lot has been done, but we should expand it over Russia. We should engage more and more architects, so not stay arrested. We're just at the beginning of the pathway forward. Thank you. Thank you, Sergey. Talking about this legislative framework, have you had any specific particular draft laws that could be applied here? Well, I would not want to focus on competitions only, though they are important, and I'm looking forward to having a legal tool that would provide to legitimize that so that we could legally help an architect. And I don't want to tell you how we were finding loopholes to make this huge job work out, because it was a real torture to find the way how to legitimize that. We've had a number of specific proposals, but so far it's been challenging. I don't want to point my fingers at the culprits, saying that those are to blame. No. The only thing I can tell you is that the initiative of individuals, be it at the federal or local level, is not enough. It should be a very consolidated effort with the professional lawyers and law practitioners and enforcers to commit to that. There are very specific things that should be worked through. We're always looking forward to your contributions, but again, it should be a fruit of our collaborative effort. Mikhail, do you have any comments on that, or you would prefer to draw a bottom line at the end? I would prefer to listen to all the viewpoints and summarize that at the end. Then I give floor to Alexei Muratov, partner at the Strelka Construction Design Bureau. Sergey needs to leave us. He has some recording, but he is excited to participate, so we want to have him soon back with us. Thank you, Natalia. Indeed, what you mentioned, the survey you mentioned was made for the Urban Forum last year, and it contains recommendation on how our architecture design system can be improved. And when we talk about young and not quite young architects, the main professional elevator, as we call it, is architecture competition. In order to make it legal, systemic, and well established, and it is a challenge because so far, indeed, the legal framework is missing both at federal and municipal level for this kind of competition, whereas globally, municipal and federal authorities and not the private companies are the main drivers of the development of architecture expert community. Minstroi, the Ministry of Construction, included the comfortable environment concept into the global strategy planning. There are many names to this project, but again, the lack of legislative framework, legal framework, undermines this competition practices because first, it's not quite clear who's gonna pay for that, because 38% of money is spent on preparing that, and not a single budget will spend money on that without this legal framework handy. Second, the winners of those competitions, what documents, what papers do they have at the end? Since it's not quite clarified, people are left ignorant. People don't have enough understanding about their rights and the responsibilities. Because as soon as the competition is over, then the tender is being held, and the winner can simply get rid of this winner. And we have seen examples of that, unfortunately, quite a few of them. So my suggestions are quite obvious. First, we need to legalize the concept of design project, especially for the so-called critical objects and territories. As far as this status, that could be determined at the regional level. Alexei, as far as I know, you've had vast experience in Strelka Bureau working in the Russian regions. How is the situation there? Well, there it's a bit different because we participate in landscaping competition and urban development competition, but we don't even have a notion of landscape competition. We still don't know what exactly it is. And second, we don't spend government money for that. We pay for that on our own, and the government simply benefits from that. So they are interested in those competitions. Although I'm not saying that that's how it should work. I think we should learn from other experiences and provide a normal, healthy legal framework that works all the way from bottom to the top, from the draft project to finalizing the paperwork and beyond. But what Sergey mentioned, it's still
талантливых архитекторов, которые сделали.
It's still difficult for us to compete with the global architect community when it comes to those competitions. Well, the problem of our architects, especially in the regions outside Moscow, is that they are talented indeed, but they lack experience. And if we need to came up with the architecture project for, say, a street in a major city of Russia, normally there is at the best one bureau that could do that for the city. I remember back In St. Petersburg, people of 50 years of age were considered young architects, and many talented professionals didn't have the opportunity to participate in anything but interior design, apartment design. That was disaster, but that community is so dense and so protective that young professionals simply cannot take over the market. Oh, I didn't expect you to be so negative. What's the positive side of this? Well, the positive side is that the awareness is raising, and we talk all the time about the social elevator. Sergey in Moscow, you in Tatarstan, Vera and others speak about that a lot. We in Strelka are trying to engage young professionals, but all those initiatives should finally take a form of a system, or should work within a systemic approach, so that we could develop this profession and support young professionals. And in my mind, there are a lot of talented people who could work to the benefit of all of us and the architecture profession overall. Thank you. Then I would like to ask Bulal Stolarov, the program director of the forum, on how we can align and merge together all those initiatives to make the world a better place.
And thank you, Natalia, for organizing this talk, because I'm also happy to be invited here also, because I'm also ready to take part also in conferences of cardiologists and ophthalmologists. But what do I see here, even from my point? I can tell you just one thing. The main thing, what is really very important, was mentioned by Kuznetsov and Muratov. But if we talk about the status of the conceptual stage, because if this concept stage will have a separate status and will be also attended separately, so the market will certainly change. It will also create different additional conditions for the lift of young or old architect teams. And I think it's a very serious market update. And let's call it as it is, because what Sergei Kuznetsov says, that we invent every single time a new financial and legal design for every single tender. It means that these changes are already on the agenda for our environment, but instead of doing it as it already used to be done in the whole world, we usually use any other schemes. I don't really need to tell the minister what to do with it. I think this crossroad is very simple. Either we modernize the current institution, and we also we change the city development code, and in this case we can also create a kind of quasi-institute. It could be a kind of fund or foundation which will take over the mission to provide the legal support and finance. And in this case we know many tenders which are currently carried out in Moscow and in other regions. And I think this crossroad is very simple. We know what do we need to ask. Do we need an institute or a quasi-institute? Or do we need to stop doing all these round tables and start speaking about the role of a young and not young architect? And I think it's clear and from my own point of view, I can tell you one thing which is not really obvious. Alexei Muratov represents Strelka Institute here, and when Strelka appeared in the educational market, and there's also a kind of phenomenal It really improved the environment and also changed it for the educational design, educational standard, and Strelka's philosophy, which is the Institute of Media and Design. We do see in the market all these good people which have this diploma of Strelka. What is missing for me in this market? Because it deals also with those who are in Strelka or not in Strelka. I need a kind of master program which may be a bit different of another type. It can be also very short or even shorter than the Strelka offers now. And I think this is the lack of spatial change management. And the guys who are really able to think very good in visions, in marketing, in architect, there is no real lack of them as in comparison to those who are able to link this vision to the current land legislation, to the financial legislation, can also really link it with the real engineering, what can also go through the state final approval or not. And I think this is management of spatial changes is a good subject for the new master program, and it will be very similar to an MBA in banking or finances. And if I really thought what kind of Strelka do we need else, and what kind of young architects do we need more, this is something what we should think about. Thank you, Bullet. And if you really would like to steal this idea, just I would like to tell you this is our idea. And now I'd like to go away from this very rational agenda connected to the new principles of tendency. Let's go back to a more romantic part. Julio, why do we need young architects? What is the peculiarity of them? And if you look at the topic, who is going to shape the future of Russian cities, and the whole topic of this forum tells us that all the tasks that are really set for us right now, they are unique, and this unique task cannot be resolved by typical or standard methods. And I think we have here a significant area of opportunities, and as Alexis said, these young architects may not have any technical experience, but they also have some advantages. They are really not so outdated in their mind, and they can generate solutions which can really improve the environment. And as for the tenders, for the development process, how can we really find a balance between all these interesting theories which are usually brought by young people and their practical implementation? And thanks to Sergey, who organized several tenders and contests, and we also made a conclusion for ourselves that reputation of every architectural company, that's the result of results. If you show the result, if you manage to do something, you can be given another order, another project, and then you get a full portfolio of different projects implemented. And Strelka, we decided to organize a school, but nobody in Russia can organize a new generation school, because we are architects. Because we talk about architecture, it is not the facades or plans, but that's actually how we organize the life of people. When we ask who can do this kind of school, and this from Denmark, they have a lot of this kind of schools, and we ask them, we are implementing it in our school. This is one of the ways for young teams. It's a kind of synergy. We can also see the we have people with experience in designing, in supervision, but they don't have any idea. And I think that's an opportunity for young teams to climb, and also for old teams not to lose their attractiveness. Because in this case, we do not really translate only the documentation, we really synergize the energy and the experience. We had some problems in the MOS project institute, but we didn't see any real result. And I think we always welcome any teams. We have a lot of work, even more than we can digest, and we are ready to share, but we always really are proud of our quality. That's why it is very important for us, and we really want young people to stick to the strategy. Because if you would like to do everything, that's not a strategy. But the strategy could be you can now become a specialist in a very small sector, and you will certainly be demanded. It could be, for example, the design of transport hubs or morning halls. That's actually could be a lift for you anyway. And we are specialists here, and that's why we can say that people decided to go to us. Sergey, on the question about those who has experience and energy, I have a good experience working with you in Kazan projects, and we have everything there and also good inspiration. But you actually was the initiator of the project supported by Mikhail Min. Why do we need this actually youth biennale? Why do we need to talk to this topic today? Partially this question was already answered by the participants of this discussion. Nevertheless, I think it's very important to identify the young generation which will be living tomorrow in this urban or less urban environment which we are supposed to create today. Today it is very important to identify this young generation in our profession, because those who are today 30 or 35 years, these are people which were born not in the Soviet Union. That sounds very formally, but it means that they have an absolutely new set of knowledge, and they are prepared for the profession in a new way, because I got my educational background in the Soviet Union, and also I got my first practical experience here. Then I spent many years abroad, and I really went not the way which I really wish to these young architects, because that was the way to Moscow while Vladivostok. And these people have a real good education and the good diplomas, and it would be really very bad that these young people wouldn't be able to feel how good they are, because they can be really driven out from the practical sphere, and they can ask themselves why they should stay here in Russia. Probably they would prefer to go to Germany, Holland, or America, because when I know these people, because in my German bureau office I have these people, and they really want to go make practice at my office in Germany, and I ask them that you have they tell them that they have in Russia a lot of tasks, and there are not enough architects to fulfill all these tasks, because the density of the practical architects is even less than in Western Europe. because the competition in Germany, in Berlin, is much higher. That's why I really don't understand why people with a good education background here in Russia decide to leave the country, because here in Russia they can also find an opportunity how to use their knowledge, their skills here. So we should give them a chance. We should make them believe they can really find not only tiny things like design a new playing space for children, but to make them design an environment where they would like to live in. We can also use Facebook, and we can also discuss with our own ideas how it should be. In order to express how it should be, we shouldn't have an excessive experience, because today I cannot tell you that I'm currently more courageous and more progressive than I was 30 years ago, because with the age I'm actually not I do feel also a fear to make a mistake. I don't want to lose something what I'm already having. Young people, they don't have this kind of fears, and the young people can also give you a very unexpected answer for the task you give them. And I really understood when I make a course in this Moscow architecture school. That's a very good project which is within the top advanced top universities in the world, and I also was responsible for the final diploma course, and I really wanted to give them to design a good part of a city, and they should also be able to find a way how to implement a certain city development idea, and every single student should be able to be within this city development idea. So we really decided to give them a piece of real life, and these people graduated in 2014. So we got very good 3 papers. So these young people gave us very unusual and interesting results, and that's why we also wish to everyone, because at the moment we have even more applications than the number of people we can select for ourselves, because in our jury we may also have people from different countries, and these people can also work with a multifunctional city environment, and we really want to find and to select the best participants of this contest, and by all means that this contest will be carried out every 2 years, and it was supported by the Tatarstan's government, and the best of the best who show the best results during this biennial will be shown in a good book and exhibitions which will take afterwards in Moscow and Kazan and Russian regions, and the governments, the private investors will see them, and they will be given these tasks, because a contest is a very good way but not the only one. It should be important for them to be seen. Mikhail Min, now we would like you to draw conclusion whether the young architects have a chance to be seen. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you, colleagues. It was very interesting to be here to listen to different points of view. I would like to tell you the following thing. That's the first time in the Russian history when we got such a significant project within the other priority projects. This is the city environment development. Well, now we calculated the total amount of budget investments when which accommodating the federal and regional investments. So we got a 42 billion rubles for this year, and I think it's not really bad for the start of this program. And we really hope that this program will be supported for the next 2 years, because even in the regions the discussion of these topics certainly finds a very good feedback from our people, because this is a topic of discussion, was discussed and for the first time in many municipalities. But what we faced here, I can tell out of my experience in visiting different regions, I quite often ask the governors to make a meeting with the heads of the local municipalities, and I usually ask them what they would like to do within the money we can provide them. Unfortunately, their fantasy, their ideas are very big. Usually they say there's small banks or light or flowers, and that's all what they can do or they can imagine. That's why everything what we do now for in terms of requirements for the architecture, everything what we do together with the Strelka Institute, with the Moscow Architecture School, that's very good, because there are really good local leaders in the municipalities who are very good in resolving social issues or even the everyday issues, but sometimes they are not really able to generate ideas how to make their municipalities even more beautiful, or even they don't understand what is really good in architecture, what really suits their municipalities to develop architecturally. And it is important to unite them, because their main job, but which is actually they're entitled for, they are fulfilling good. But here they need certainly a support. And I think we will keep working on it.
But the most important thing that in this project, I haven't really feel the point of touch between the architectural community and municipal authorities. Well, to a large extent, it's still due to the fact that the status of the chief architect in the Russian region is not quite clear. St. Petersburg and Moscow are somewhat different in this regard, because those are cities that have the regional status, and they are relatively independent. But as far as other regions are concerned, the place of architects there, of chief architects there, is still not quite clear. Besides, May last year there was a decree of the Council of the Russian Federation that chief architects should report directly to mayors of the city. 26 subjects of the Russian Federation's 26 regions have already done that, but unfortunately we still have 4 regions where the position of a chief architect is still vacant. So I would like us to join efforts in supporting local communities of architects, not just in Moscow but elsewhere. I would like people on the grounds to collaborate with municipalities more actively. They can start by participating in this project. It's indeed a good start. Another thing that I would like to say, that in Russian Youth Architecture Biennale, what Alexei has mentioned, we will definitely participate in that. But to wrap up, I'd like to announce another event. You know that traditionally we celebrate an Architect Day in August. We do that annually, and it's a major event. This year, the celebration will take place on the 9th of August, a little bit before the day itself, so that at the actual day, the governors, the mayors and vice mayors could come to the construction sites and congratulate the people there personally. We have provided for a major discussion. We plan to host a big discussion for that day. We want to have a discussion and a dialogue between an old and new school of urban architects, urban planners, and constructors. I think it's going to be a challenging event. We're going to have two major parties that will argue with each other, and the truth always lies somewhere in between. It's exciting to learn both conservative and new avant-garde points of view and have the synergy out of that. Thank you. So we're looking forward to have you here. Dear friends, we started late, but we finished the event on time, so we invite you to participate in the session called the renovation in the main Moscow Hall. On my behalf, I invite you all to the Republic of Tatarstan.